It has been the most gorgeous weather here, and I am finally believing that spring is here. I know it's only what day is it? The 11th of March, I think, today. Lewis is 9 months old, but it feels like spring. We've had temperatures in the 70s and 80s, no freezing temperatures at night for a while, and I'm so excited. I've started planting things in the garden. But when I was sharing over on YouTube about some winter planting that I did last month, I was getting so many questions about how I did this that I thought I should record a video that I can send people to and also tell you guys about how I plant seeds in little mini greenhouses for just a couple dollars. So right back here, I have this beautiful greenhouse, but I don't have any seedlings started in this right now. I didn't want to heat it whenever I started these seedlings. You know, I have to run an electric heater, it's expensive. And then during the day, when the sun really shines on it, it gets super hot, like scorching temperatures. It's a beautiful greenhouse, and I do use it later in the year. Also, I'll use it when my tomato plants are big, too big for their little pots, and I want to put them in big pots, but it's not quite warm enough in the garden. That'll be a perfect transition for that. But I don't use it as much as I thought I would, honestly. I have a neighbor who's been a professional gardener for years, and he told me when we were building this, that greenhouse is too small. You're gonna have a hard time keeping an even temperature. And he was right. So it's beautiful, and I just haven't learned how to use it well, I guess is what it comes down to. This is Skyla. She's getting so big. I don't know if I ever really introduced you guys to her and her sister. They were stray kitties born to a wild neighborhood cat by our friends, and they came to live with us. They love farm life, just love it. Okay, so right behind Skyla here are my greenhouses, and believe it or not, they work better for planting early seedlings than that beauty over there. So this is how I plant all of my cool weather loving seedlings. So I'm not going to plant tomatoes or peppers in here because it's not going to be a warm enough temperature when they need to get in the ground, although it has been unusually warm here. So what I do, let's pretend this brick is in here. In the early months when it's still cold out and you're wanting to plant those things like cauliflowers, even lettuce, sometimes if it's not too cold, cabbage. This is always how I plant my cabbage, and I have the best cabbage plants from this method. Anything that can tolerate some cooler temperatures. You are going to prepare some ground. So I practice no-till gardening, so this is what my garden looks like. It has a lot of mulch and things on top of it. So when I'm going to plant seeds, I pull that back, I rake it back so I have just soil, a spot of soil. And then I thickly plant those seeds because I don't need to follow the spacings on the package because I'm going to be transplanting these later. Plant them, you know, cover them however deep the package says to cover them, and then water them gently. And put this plastic tote right on top. And then a brick on top of that. I let this sit. You don't need to open it up and water it again because there's moisture that's going to stay in there and keep your soil just a perfect consistency, not too dry, not too wet. It's just gonna have all this condensation. It's like a little, what did they call them? Terrariums, like I made as a child. And I'm gonna leave it like this until those little seeds begin to sprout. When they start to sprout, and the days are starting to get a little warmer, you know, if it's so early that it's freezing cold out, I'll still leave this on there. But when the weather gets a little bit warmer, I just prop it up like this. That's the next step. And you can see in here, in this one, we have things coming up. This is all little lettuce here. Miss Curious Skyla, come on out, girl. Okay, so we'll just leave it like this. And then when it gets really warm, that it's creating too much heat in there, then we're ready to just leave this off. Because the seeds are planted directly in the ground of the garden, exposed to the elements, but you know, in a gentle way with those plastic totes, I have gotten seedlings that are so strong. So last year, as an experiment, I planted some of my cruciferous vegetables, so that's like, you know, your cabbage and broccoli and things. I planted them in here like normal. I planted some in my greenhouse. It was really cold in February, early February it was probably. I planted some in my little starts, little pots, I should say, and I grew them both that way. Tried to keep those watered, everything that you would normally do for little seedlings. Put them under lights, you know, babied them. These, threw them in the ground, covered them up, left them alone, never touched them again. The plants that I transplanted from the greenhouse were very weak and did poorly. These little guys that I planted here in my garden and then transplanted, they were amazing. They were so strong and grew into big, healthy plants. And it took less work. It was just amazing. So I'm gonna let these little guys grow until they're a few inches tall and really strong. They have their true leaves, you know, they're looking hardy. The temperatures are good. There's no more, you know, freezing in sight. Whenever it comes time to transplant, then I'll move them into rows or wherever I want them to be in the garden, because at that point they've been exposed to sunshine. You know, the Tupperware is gone and they're just out in the air. And so we'll transplant them. I like to pick a nice like cloudy or misty, kind of lightly rainy day to transplant because it's less stress on your little seedlings. Move them out, kind of water them until those roots get established, cover them up with the mulch like I do in my no-till garden, and voila, they grow. And it's been awesome. So this year I did more. I said, next year I need to buy more of these plastic tubs because I would like to do a lot of different things. I'm trying out onions for the first time. I've always started onions in the house, onion seeds, because typically you plant them end of January. I'm a little late with everything this year because life has been busy, but that's okay. You get it in the ground. In fact, I just planted my tomato seeds a few days ago. So whatever, they'll grow. They won't produce as early as normal, but that's okay. You do it when you can do it. And so if you haven't planted seeds yet, grab a couple packets and start planting because it's never too late. Well, it is too late at some point, but it's not yet. Other things in the garden, I just kind of pulled back the hay from my garlic that I planted last fall. So that's growing, adjusting to that. And here, you know, seeds are cheap, relatively cheap. And if you save your seeds from each year, of course, they're free. And so I love experimenting. And so since we've had such warm temperatures, I went ahead and raked back some mulch again, just raked it back here, and I'll move it back when I'm finished or when the seedlings are up. And I just went ahead and made some rows here, and I planted just some different variety of things, some spinach, some radishes, some chard, just things that can handle a little bit of cool weather. I'm gonna see what happens. So I've been just sprinkling these with water a couple times a day. I thought it was so fun. Do you see this right there? That is a spinach plant. And this must have been the row last year that I had spinach, because if you go down in a perfect line, there's more spinach coming up. Isn't that cool? I'm thinking that probably the roots just stayed in the ground and they popped back up again when the weather conditions were right. So I went ahead and planted spinach in that row to complement its friends here. These guys will just get a head start. I also have down here, I have some what we would call weeds growing in this bed, but I want to look them up and see what they are. I think this one is probably mullein. Mullein and lamb's ear are kind of hard for me to tell apart right now, so you know, I want to check between the two. But these are wonderful medicinal herbs, and so I want to check those out and harvest them rather than just dig them up and throw them, you know, to the rabbits, which I will do at some point. But anyway, I'm letting those grow for now. Over here under these chicken wire cages that we made are the carrots that we threw in the ground last fall. They were seeds that I just randomly sprinkled. I had a box or a packet of a few hundred seeds and I just tossed them out there. It was an older packet, and we covered it with plastic over these cages that we made, and they sprouted and they grew. So now I need to get busy. I do a little here and there, but just get busy thinning them out so they can get bigger and grow. The kids actually love to eat them, the thinnings, even though they're tiny. Let's see how big one is getting. If I move this thing over a little bit. So the ones that are crowded together are really small, as you'd imagine. But look at that. So beautiful. So we'll thin these out so that they can grow nice and big. And I feed all these rabbit tops to I feed all of the carrot tops to our rabbits. They love them. We have just 2 rabbits here right now, just 2 girl rabbits. Everything else is gone. I need to get another male here in the future. They're gonna love these treats. I also love looking in the garden for random things that are popping up on their own, little volunteers, and try to figure out, what is it? Probably gonna need a couple more leaves before I can get a really good guess. I have some ideas that it might be like a cucumber-ish type thing, but we'll see. This is the big job that I have. Jason dumped me a big load of mulch using the tractor, and that is to be spread out over this mess. You know, coming back in the garden in the springtime is a lot of work because typically in the fall, I don't tidy up very well because I'm just kind of done. I'm over it. And especially this year, I had a newborn and I was not out here. So we've got just a lot of cleanup to do, but that's okay. It's a beautiful time to be outside in the garden. So now the house can get messy while I spend all my days in the garden. I did grow one thing in the greenhouse over the winter. Let me go in and show you what that is. So that was really sweet because we were able to enjoy lettuce in the winter. It doesn't grow very fast in the winter, but it grows. There's a couple other things that aren't lettuce in here, but actually, this looks like chard. Now that I'm looking at it, this looks like chard. How fun. Anyway, so we were able to eat just a couple of little meals off of this. It doesn't grow fast in the winter, but it grows, and it's the only fresh green that we had growing, and so it was a wonderful treat. Hello, sir. Are you excited to garden this year?
Yeah.
You have your own garden, don't you? What are you going to grow this year?
Tomatoes, flowers, green beans, peas and stuff.
What about cucumbers?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Skyla's wanting a lot of loving right now. James spent the whole day outside, I think. What did you do today?
Played the Power Wheels.
Grandpa brought over 2 Power Wheel trucks that they hooked up actual car batteries to. So the kids have been driving all day. It's very fun. Did you ride your bike at all, though, or did you just...
I did.
You did. What are you doing there? Are you trying to grow?
She's big.
She is big. She just wants any kind... Oh, you stopped petting her. She's like, wait a second. You forgot to pet me. So tonight we have 2 of Bella's friends coming over that are going to learn how to milk the cow. We are going to Oklahoma next week to speak at the Okie Homesteading Festival, Expo, I think. We're going to talk on homesteading, just like getting started, just shoving your fears aside and just getting started, not waiting for a perfect situation, not waiting to have all the answers. We sure don't. But just what are the steps we need to take from looking for and buying land to setting up your homestead, how to put in fencing, just like covering the basics. Did she claw you or walk on you? Scratch your leg. So while we're gone, we don't have anybody to milk the cows. So we have some friends that are of Bella's that are just like, they can do anything kind of girls, just like her. So they're going to come over and she's going to teach them how to milk our cows. We'll see how this goes. I don't know. Hopefully it's good. They're Bella's age. I mean, you know, if anybody can do it, they can do it. Are you skeptical?
We're playing out wrestling.